Hey everyone, my name is Yarrow and you're listening to the Embodied Business Podcast. I'm really glad to have you and I'm excited today to talk about the magic of batching stuff and why it is so beautiful, so beautiful. So let me make a few announcements first. I have 2 retreats coming up. I want to explain kind of how they're different so it's not too confusing. One is a free online virtual weekend retreat for your business coming up on January 21st and 22nd. This is the 5th time I'm offering these. They're really beautiful gatherings of like-minded people. I usually offer 2 or 3 workshops, teaching skills, sparking conversations about stuff, and then also a co-working space where we just kind of get together on Zoom and quietly work on stuff that we want to implement from the workshops that we've been in. And I love this format because it means we're not just stuffing our brains with new information, we're also making time to actually do the thing. And we also have time to get to know each other and journal and reflect and kind of play and dream together. So that is free, like I said. I'll link to it in the show notes. And then over New Year's Eve from December 29th to January 2nd, I'm also offering a 5-day creative retreat, which is kind of open practice based. You can imagine it like an artist residency that you can do from home. And I'm offering this because I really strongly dislike New Year's Eve or how it's usually done. I think in the depth of winter, I just want to kind of lean into my practices. I want to journal and draw tarot spreads and be with other people. So the format for each day will be the same. It begins with a 45-minute session on creativity. There'll be some storytelling, some ideas, some journaling prompts, some things that you can just kind of take and make your own. And then we'll have 2 hours of quiet working time together. And in that time, you can work on absolutely anything you love. It could be knitting, drawing, writing, painting, dancing, napping, whatever. You'll just be in this cozy creative cocoon with us, and we'll hold you in that space for whatever you want to do. And of course, it can be super low energy, and it can also be really ambitious, just depending on where you're at and what you want. That is $90 for the 5 days, and its sign up is through the Making app. You will need a free account with them to sign up, but it really just takes a minute, and it's a beautiful community, so totally worth taking the time, and I would love to see you there. All right, so now I want to talk about batching. So batching is the idea that you're grouping tasks together and you're not kind of dipping in and out of different tasks too much throughout your day. So to ground this in more practical examples, if I was on Instagram, for example, I might decide to batch write and schedule all my posts for the coming week. So I'm sitting down only once to do that, and I'm writing them all out, and then I'm scheduling them in so that I'm not needing to log in every single day to make a post. It could also mean that once per month you sit down and you do all your expenses in one big batch, so that again you're not kind of doing that every few days or so when you have an expense coming up. You can also do this for things like podcast editing or writing copy for your newsletter or your website. Basically, I hold this really kind of wide lens on what counts as batching. It's the grouping together of tasks that are related in my mind. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why it helps me so much. So attention span is something that I'm really struggling with, to be honest. Leaving Instagram certainly has helped, but there are just so many demands on our attention these days. There's so much media that we consume, so many different communication channels that we are often open to. And so it really day to day is something that I'm thinking about a lot. How can I help my brain kind of settle deeper and allow myself more space to really sink into one task and give it my full attention before I carry on and do the next thing. It's not easy, and I think batching things has really helped me with that. So it helps me to think about where my attention jumps to, and just to kind of increase my capacity to focus on one thing for extended periods of time. I also think that batching really helps me save time overall, because as we know, when we jump between different tasks too much, we can lose a lot of time each time we jump at getting back into the thing that we were just working on. And I think with that, it's of course also important to know your neurotype. This isn't like, this feels true for me. It might be really different for you. I know there's also people who really benefit from kind of this creative dance of kind of moving between different tasks all the time. And it can feel really exciting and nourishing to them. And I think it also depends on kind of the season we're in, our health, our maybe level of good sleep that we're getting. So this is not like a hard and fast rule where you have to define this way of doing it and then always do it this way. But I think it's more about becoming more aware of what ways of working in your business actually feel really good. Which brings me to the next point is I think batching stuff can help us see patterns more easily. So for example, when I'm doing PR outreach where I'm pitching to other podcasts, I'm trying not to kind of send an occasional email to another podcast host every now and then to ask them if I can be on their show, but instead I'm sitting down once per season or once every other month, and I'm reaching out to five to seven. And doing it in that way, for me at least, kind of makes it clearer what I found hard about that. And of course, reaching out and kind of like asking for things is probably difficult for most of us in some way. But if I kind of concentrate these tasks, I'm just more easily able to see what kind of support I might need around that or what I find easy or hard. Same with bookkeeping. Initially, in the first few years in my business, I really didn't have a good system in place. I was kind of randomly collecting receipts for my expenses, and I was sort of tracking obviously what was coming in, but I didn't have like a really good structure in place that really tells me at any point in the month, in the year, where I'm at financially. And initially, to build that system, I had to go in really quite often and to kind of make little tweaks and put something in and make a note here or there. And now I have more of a rhythm of kind of really checking in every other week and having these little forecasts about, what do the next 3 months look like? What am I expecting to come in? What am I expecting to have to pay? And it's just much more of a flow where I don't have to look at it all the time. I know there's a system in place and I can really batch kind of getting on top of my receipts, for example. And so to me, batching is really also about creating structure and really kind of thinking about what software might support the processes that you're working on repeatedly. So for example, if you're trying to work with clients one-on-one and you're spending a lot of time scheduling and going back and forth in your emails, having a booking system obviously will really save you a lot of time on that, and it will also maybe free up some time that you can then spend on batching things and making things easier. Another thing I love about batching is that sometimes it can create spaciousness in times of difficulty. What I mean by that is that when I have a chance, which I don't always have, like I'm recording this episode right now and I'll publish it right away. But there have been times where I was able to say record 2 or 3 solo episodes in like an afternoon, or edit 3 interview episodes in an afternoon, and then kind of have them ready for to be published, where I just had to then click the button to publish. For weeks where I maybe didn't have the time or energy. So by batching this stuff, you can kind of give yourself a little bit of a buffer for times where maybe you're not feeling well enough to stay on top of what you're intending to do. Of course, we could have a whole other conversation about capitalism and productivity. That's not the direction I want to take this, and I'm more thinking about, how can you offer yourself kindness and compassion and patience when you need it. And to me, batching is a part of that. I also want to touch on kind of like how I work with priorities, because I'm not a big fan of to-do lists as part of batching, and that again could be different for you. I used to have to-do lists. I don't love them that much. I have a big vision spread in Excel, which is beautifully color coordinated. And within that, I define kind of like my bigger picture values, and I touch base on them once per year. And then also I break it down into different projects within my work. So let's say podcasting, group facilitation, one-on-one work, design, and so forth. And then within each project, I'll again define priorities, next steps, and break it down into smaller tasks. And then I will schedule these tasks into my calendar rather than keeping a running to-do list. And to me, that strangely feels much more gentle and less overwhelming to have it in my calendar. And I give myself again flexibility with that. So I might be waking up on a Friday morning and just not feel like the thing that I have scheduled into my calendar, and I allow myself to move that around. But I would say that 80% of the time, I actually feel quite up for the thing that I've scheduled, because I've scheduled it with kindness and spaciousness. I have not crammed every single minute of my day, or not even every single hour. And so it feels good, to wake up and see like what is in my calendar for my business today, and then get on with it, basically. And one last tip I wanted to share is that I also really love to group my different tasks. So when I have a bigger project coming up, like let's say a launch, in September, for example, I had my big back to school launch, and so that it has a lot of moving pieces. I was sending 3 newsletters. I made a few posts on the Making app. I published some podcast episodes that announced the back to school sale, and obviously I needed to be around to kind of answer questions via email as they came up. And obviously there's still lots more to that. And there's also in automations and setting up codes for discounts and all kinds of stuff. But I would just kind of like map out all the different tasks for that project, and then I would group them into creative, community, and admin. And then depending on kind of where I'm at in my cycle, in my health, in my day, I would focus on one of these groups. So for example, when I get up and I'm quite grumpy and a lot of pain that day, I will just get on with the admin stuff, because I don't need the creative headspace to do those things. If I feel quite chatty and communicative, I will focus on the community related stuff. And if I feel kind of like solitary but creative, then obviously I will get on with the creative stuff on my list. And that's again like a nice way for me to batch stuff that has been really helpful. All right, I think these are all my tips. Thank you so much for listening. Please come to my creative retreats. Again, the links and the show notes. And yeah, would love to see you there. Thank you. Bye.